So I recently ran across a post on Facebook talking about how Steve-O turned down Bill Maher's podcast because Bill Maher was unwilling to refrain from smoking pot during the interview. And Steve-O wasn't willing to compromise on his 16 years of sobriety by doing the podcast. Now, listen, I can nearly guarantee you if Steve-O had done that podcast, he wouldn't have relapsed. But you know what? That's not the point. Steve-O didn't think watching Bill Maher smoking pot was going to cause him to relapse. Steve-O said no because Steve-O knows if he says yes to these kinds of situations over and over and over and over again, that it's only a matter of time before he caves and does relapse. Steve-O said no out of principle. And because he's learned throughout the last 16 years of his recovery that the only way he can really guarantee that he wakes up sober the next day is if he makes sure he isn't putting himself in an environment where relapse is even possible. And it's not just about Bill Maher's podcast. It's about the 1,000 other occasions he's had to say no to throughout his 16 years in recovery. And you might think that he's being just a little bit too cautious, and it's not a big deal. But you know what? That's why Steve-O is 16 years sober and you're not. Because relapse only needs to win once. All it takes is for you to loosen your grip just enough to lead you into getting high. Just once, just one more time. But I got news for you, buddy. One more time doesn't work for people like us. Not anymore. And I know that pill is a little hard to swallow, no pun intended. But if you legitimately think that just having one is still on the table for you, then why haven't you done it? I'll tell you why. Because for people like you, people like me, people like Steve-O, we are just not capable of towing that line anymore. And that's okay, man. That's okay. What's not okay is you going out to the bar, going to hang out at your old buddy's little drug den, doing all the same stuff at all the same places, thinking that somehow things are going to be different this time. That you're not going to end up in jail, on bond, in court, on probation, getting shoved right back into the meat grinder again. But if you're ready to stop being a statistic, you need to listen up. Because everybody has a threshold for temptation. That is how much temptation you can handle before relapse becomes inevitable. And the people who don't make it in recovery are the people who overestimate their tolerance for temptation. But the people who make it in recovery, like Steve-O with his 16 years, or me with my 8 years, we came to realize that even if we can, in principle, handle the temptation, it still isn't worth it. And we're not tiptoeing on the edge of a cliff anymore. We are standing 50 feet away from it. And if you're ever going to make it past 90 days in recovery, you have to accept that some places you used to love going to, they're just not worth the trouble they bring. If you want different, you have to move different. This is your season to say no. And you better learn how to say it. Because relapse is out there in the parking lot doing push-ups. And it's just waiting for you to slip up.